Je pense sans cesse à toi.
Hello and welcome to The Foretop. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot button topics in food and beverage. I'm your host, Catherine Cole. It's getting hot outside, so in episode 46, we will focus on cooking and eating al fresco. We are joined for this episode by Steven Raichlen, author of 31 books, host of many television shows, winner of 5 James Beard Awards, and his newest book is called Project Fire. Welcome, Steven.
Thank you.
And James Beard Award-winning food and travel writer Jen Stevenson, co-author of 2 books that are very well suited to today's discussion, The Picnic and The Campout. Hello, Jen.
Hi.
And Marnie Hanel, a journalist whose work can be found in the New York Times Magazine, Food and Wine, W, Vanity Fair, Departures, Marie Claire, Town and Country, New York, and Sunset. Hey, Marnie.
Hi.
Now for our first course, 21st century cooking with fire. It used to be so simple. Summer chefs either used a smoker or a gas-fired grill or a charcoal grill. But over the past few years, a rash of new grills and gadgets have been showing up in stores. Steven Raichlen, could you talk us through some of the new, or at least new to the United States, implements and techniques that we should be using this summer season?
Absolutely. One first big trend is actually as old as humanity, and it's grilling with wood. And until recently, wood-fired grills, standard fare at upscale restaurants, thinking here in Portland, a restaurant like Ox, but it was not something we tended to do at home. And we tended not to do it at home because it takes a while to build a wood fire. Wood-burning grills traditionally have been quite expensive, and it's a much less predictable fuel than charcoal. However, a new generation of grills has brought wood-fire grilling home, and it's a big topic.
Oh, so getting primal.
Getting primal. Well, you know, if you think about it, propane gives you heat, charcoal gives you heat, but neither really produce an intrinsic flavor. When you burn wood, you're getting both wood smoke for flavor, and you're getting heat. And there's a very simple, smack your forehead kind of technique that I came up with where, you know how you use a chimney starter to light charcoal, right? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, instead of putting charcoal in your chimney starter, just fill it with wood chunks, hickory chunks, alder chunks if you're out here, and light those. And within, 20 minutes, you're grilling over a wood fire.
Oh. So, Marnie, you co-wrote the Campout cookbook with Jen. In your cookbook, I noticed that you get super primal. You have like sticks as cooking implements. So did you guys do a lot of cooking over just open campfires?
We sure did. When we explored a lot of different types of camp cooking, and many of them stem from our nostalgic memories of going to Girl Scout camp and summer camp, cooking with roasting weenies over the fire and roasting marshmallows. But as we got into camp cooking, it's just what Steven said. We really loved just the simplicity of cooking over a fire pit. So at first, we were the rubes that were trying to just start a great bed of coals from firewood each time. We learned about the charcoal chimney a bit further into recipe development just to cut our days down. And we fell in love with it. I mean, one of the most adventurous things we did was we got into clenching. Do you remember that, Jen?
We had to try it when we read about it.
Clenching. Do you know about this?
What is this?
Well, you have a different term for it in your book. Yeah. But that's the word that we heard for just throwing meat directly onto the coals.
Clenching. What is the origin of clenching, Marnie?
I don't know. What is it? Do you know?
I've never heard. I've never heard the term before.
Do you remember who told us about it as clenching originally? It was either Elias Cairo from Olympia Provisions or Mona Johnson from Tournant, which are two a restaurant in town and a catering company in Portland.
I wonder if it's, let's see, you take $100 porterhouse steak, you throw it on the coals, and then you clench your teeth in the fear that it's not going to burn.
I think you've nailed it, because I will say when we took our beautiful ribeye,
we were so frightened.
We were so nervous. We fanned off the coals to get rid of as much ash as possible, and then we looked at each other and thought, okay, here goes $50 for better or worse.
Threw it on there.
And it was one of the more exciting experiences.
It was a beautiful piece of meat when it was done.
And it's the taste, the flavor is absolutely fabulous.
It's out of this world.
Yeah, you get a crusty char, you get kind of a smoky finish. You just can't achieve on a conventional grill grate.
No,
And it's very exciting.
And the eye
Very
pop, jaw
dramatic.
drop, I mean, people's reactions. I love to watch people's reactions.
And very ironic that this is the new way to cook, just throwing stuff right on the coals.
Well, it's one new way, but it's, what's old, making the old new and the new holy.
Well, Stephen, can you walk me through a few more terms here that I've encountered in your book and I need to hear more about? What is salt slab grilling, for example?
So salt slabs are bricks of salt that come from a salt mountain in the Pakistani Himalayas, and you basically place a salt slab on your grill, and you can use it many different ways. One of my favorite is to heat it up, and then I make something called a salt slab grilled chocolate brownie s'more, speaking of the Girl Scouts.
Oh, wow.
And in this rendition, the gorgeous homemade chocolate brownies replace the graham crackers, and a beautiful bitter chocolate slab of chocolate replaces the cheap candy bar. There's slivered mint, then there's Grand Marnier, and a homemade marshmallow on top. Now, what the salt slab does, it evens out the heat, so you get a kind of an even roasting, and it mingles on the bottom with the melting chocolate. So you get a little salt flavor, and, everybody knows a little salt kind of brings out and transforms the sweetness of a dessert. Plus, again, the dark chocolate, the pink slab, it just looks fantastic.
How about a plancha grill? What's that?
So a plancha is the Spanish word for a griddle, champa in South America. And this is often associated with fire. It used to be fueled with fire. But the new twist comes that you do it on a charcoal grill. And it's great for foods you might be hesitant to grill in a conventional manner, like eggs or like a fragile fish like flounder or sole. But you place the plancha on the charcoal grill, and then right before the food goes on, you toss wood chips or chunks on the fire. The last couple minutes, you close the grill lid. So you're trapping in the smoke, so you're getting the benefits of griddling with the smoke flavor you associate with live fire.
Well, so Jen Stevenson, your book, I was just so surprised by the variety of recipes the two of you came up with. What can you tell me, maybe was there one cooking technique that both of you discovered that you weren't familiar with, that you learned?
A cooking technique.
Well, we fell in love with the Dutch oven, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about
it's
that.
It's not like we had used a Dutch oven. We owned one, but it's not like I used it all the time. It was down in the basement. So, yes, we learned that you could do just about anything with a Dutch oven. So we would actually bake in it, like we do a lasagna, beef stew, things like that. But we also used it for a fun dessert recipe, and it was it's double-decker pineapple right-side-up cakes. And so that's actually not the technical title in the book, but that's what they are. And so you layer your cake in the mugs and then put them in the Dutch oven, and, it insulates them, and it bakes into this gorgeous little mug cake, and that's very fun. So, yeah, we really put our Dutch ovens through their paces.
Wow, I'm so impressed. And do you put the Dutch oven right on the coals? Or
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
It's the one with feet. I think it's the 5-quart. But yeah, you just set it right in there, rotate it regularly, make sure those hot spots don't wreck one or two of your cakes.
And Jen, do you put coals in the top too, the hollow top?
Exactly,
yes.
yes.
That's really great.
That was the piece that I thought wasn't as intuitive, because I'd usually just use the Dutch oven as I had in my home kitchen, and on the campsite used it to heat things up. So making sure that there's more coals actually on the lid than underneath, that surprised me, that it's more of a 2/3, 1/3 ratio.
It was interesting. I'm fascinated by the history of grilling and barbecue. And a few years ago, I was at the Prehistory Museum in the Tarn Gorge, and they had a hearth that was about 10,000 years old, and they believe it was used like a Dutch oven. There was a stone that kind of had embers on the top, and then a stone on the bottom with embers underneath of it. And before there was ironware, before there was anything, people were using that technology.
I think it's time to move on to our second course, related to our first. Another discovery I made while reading the Camp Out cookbook was that you can make jerky at home. I did not realize this, and then take it on the trail, which appealed to me because the idea of cooking so elaborately on the trail kind of intimidated me. So, Jen, can you tell us how to make jerky at home? What's the basic outline of how you do that?
Oh, sure. Well, we decided to do a jerky recipe because it seems like these days a lot of people are on, a diet like paleo or Whole30, and they're looking for like a really nice protein-rich snack, and a meat snack just sort of fits the bill. And so we did a lot of research, and we decided on doing beef and salmon, and it's very easy to make your own jerky at home. You need a good cut of meat, not too fatty, kind of a nice lean cut. You're going to cut against the grain, make sure you kind of get it tender, get through that muscle fiber. And then we used a marinade, and, we put it in the marinade, let it sit, get nice and flavorful, and then we put it in the oven for a very long time. But you could use a dehydrator or a smoker. We just used an oven so that it was nice and accessible, because not everyone has a smoker, but pretty much everyone has an oven. And so we did that with both the salmon jerky and the beef jerky, and it just makes a really easy, portable, shelf-stable snack that you just tote right to the campsite, and people can snack on it. And it's, it's kid-friendly. It's easy to take on a hike. It's easy just to have around the campsite. You can drop it in the ground, and it's actually very easy to brush off. Like, it's a great camping snack.
And it's so in right now. I was doing some research, and jerky as a category is just taking off. It's all over Whole Foods Market. It used to be just at the gas station mart, right? And now it's at all the natural food stores.
And you can buy it with organic meat and
grass-fed.
Naturally smoked. Most commercial jerky the smoke flavor comes from a liquid smoke product.
Yeah. Is that? Can you tell when you're tasting that it's the liquid smoke?
Yeah, it's unnaturally salty and unnaturally smoky. Of course, it also takes about 1/100th of the amount of time of truly smoking jerky.
And I bet you do smoke your own jerky.
I do smoke my own jerky.
Stephen. Yeah, I think the liquid smoke is kind of like that fake truffle oil, where if you've tasted it once and identified it once, then you can always taste it after that. So, Marnie, do you eat a lot of jerky?
I have to say, when I'm reaching for, I have 2 kids at home, and when I'm reaching for a quick snack, I'm trying to trend more towards protein than a carb. So I don't eat it as much jerky as I do, say, a hard-boiled egg, but I think it's a great snack and something I can get behind. So I'm pro jerky.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about jerky being so popular right now. I mean, do all of you feel like sort of this primal style of cooking and eating is? I mean, Jen, you talked about the paleo diet. Is it having a moment right now? Are you finding an increase in interest in this kind of cooking and eating?
I think that industrialization of food went so far that people are now really interested in backpedaling and breaking down the elements of what we're eating and how to make it. So I think that's part and parcel of it. It seems like a simple food, especially if it's made at home. You know what's in there, and you know it's good for you on some level. So I think it's of a piece with the same interest in pickling, preserving, and just doing more things yourself that we used to be delighted to ship off to a deli or a restaurant. Yeah.
I think also there's a funny kind of dichotomy in live fire cooking today. And on the one hand, we're celebrating meats, but we're eating better meats. Mm-hmm. We're spending money for outrageously, beautifully marbled Wagyu beef, for example. But at the same time, we are doing more with vegetables in live fire cooking. I mean, it's funny, and I feel a little embarrassed being who I am and what I do, but the biggest chapter in Project Fire is actually the vegetable chapter. And that's true of most of my books, in part because vegetables cooked by live fire are so interesting. I mean, there's nothing like the high-dry heat of a grill for bringing out the sweetness of a vegetable. Or you can caveman sweet potatoes, you can caveman cabbage.
What do you mean by caveman?
Oh, cavemanning is cooking on the embers. I think what you call...
we called it clinching.
Clinching, right.
Okay, so
I
now
like
we brought it full circle.
Yeah, so I call it caveman grilling because it's probably the first way we learned to grill. Yeah. But vegetables are really they're getting their due. Even tofu, I feel with this book, I've always written about grilled tofu, but I feel like I kind of clinched the code of grilling tofu.
But you
in
didn't
this way.
clinch.
I didn't clinch it. I have not done ember roasted tofu yet. However, notepad comes out, to-do list.
We found very much the same with the interest of vegetables and fire cooking, that interaction. When we turned to tinfoil packets, which is a staple of camp cooking, one of the things that we wanted to do was upgrade those by putting vegetables on the fire. So we did a lot of shishito peppers and some cherry tomatoes and rainbow carrots and some interactions between vegetables and compound butters. And almost anything turns out really successfully in the vegetable fields when you wrap it in tinfoil and put it on the embers for a while. So it's an easy win.
You know what's another interesting application of we call those hobo packs, by the way, the foil packs, but to wrap foods in leaves. Like I do, it's a halibut with a Singapore lemongrass paste, and it's wrapped in banana leaves. And you can either cook that on the grill grate or you can throw it right in the embers. And, you get an aroma that may remind you of a plant that was until recently was illegal in Oregon and elsewhere, but it just, it sort of naturally smokes the fish from the outside in. And that leaf grilling, you can do it with grape leaves, banana leaves. It's spectacular.
Well, speaking of smoking, Stephen, do you know anything about the carcinogenic or the supposed carcinogenic effects of smoked foods? I think I read that meats can have that, but vegetables are safe to eat. Is that right? Do you know anything about
what?
this?
To me, this is a headline in search of a story.
Oh, okay.
I mean, first of all, think about it, right? The single most important evolutionary leap forward for humanity was discovering you could cook food, especially meat, with fire. And that took Homo erectus from, basically a gorilla to a small brain to a species that dominated the planet. I've never read a serious epidemiological study that suggests that grilled foods or smoked foods cause massive amounts of cancer. And just the fact that we're here, 98% of human history, we did our cooking over live fire. We wouldn't be here if it were really dangerous. Now, supposedly the problems come when you burn food as opposed to grill it, but we're all pros here, right? We're grilling our food, we're not burning it.
I'm a wine person. I definitely burn my food on the grill, but not that often. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I think that's, there's so much fear-mongering in food these days, and, we shouldn't be frightened of food. We should embrace it.
Well, you brought up burning, and that made me think of our third topic for today. I want to hear everyone's horror stories about cooking outdoors. I want to hear about those moments when everything went horribly wrong. You set a tree on fire. I don't know. Marnie, there was a funny moment in your book where you and Jen accidentally stained your teeth gray. Can you tell us about that? And how can you do this?
I bet Stephen will know. We'll already have a suspected reason why we did it, but I'll tell you the story. So we received a lot of great cast iron to work with when we were recipe developing, and one of the cast iron Dutch ovens arrived pre-seasoned, which is a trend now. And it used to be that you had to season your own cast iron from start, and now most companies want to give you a head start to make it less intimidating. So Jen and I had this idea to do a beautiful cherry blueberry slump, which is a cobbler with the biscuits on top. And we cooked it in the fire. We were just getting to know our Dutch ovens generally, and we opened the lid, and it was just the most beautiful thing we'd ever seen. There's nothing more magical than when you cook something on the fire and it actually works. It still amazes us, even now.
It really does. It never gets old.
It never gets old. So we were delighted by this. We had our tasting spoons at the ready. We started eating it right out of the cast iron. And we're looking at each other. We're realizing, your teeth look a little gray.
We're not saying anything.
Neither of us said anything for a moment. And then we both fessed up that the other person's teeth had turned an unlikely and unsuitable shade of sort of grayish black.
Oh, no.
More than 50 shades of gray.
Many more. And that was because the cast iron Dutch oven hadn't been properly seasoned. It had been sort of, they fake it a little bit. And then you get to know your Dutch oven season you use it and you love it, and then that seasoning really sets in. But it had been mostly blackened, and that was what we were seeing in our teeth that we then brushed about 1 million times. So what we learned is you really don't want to use your new Dutch oven before it's well practiced with anything that's very acidic, because that will draw out that blackening. The recipe itself stands. It's still in our book. We love that slump. But the next time we made it in a tried and true Dutch oven that we'd had for years. That was a good one.
How about any encounters with wild animals when you were cooking out in nature?
We haven't had a bear yet.
Knock wood.
Knock on wood. But it's just like there was the time that I came out of the tent and a raccoon was standing on the picnic table with the carton of eggs out of the cooler somehow, eating one of the eggs. And so I'm throwing things at him, and he's just standing there. And he throws the shell on the ground, picks another egg up, and starts to eat it. There was that.
Just looking at you.
Yes. And then there's your assortment of creepy crawlies, yellow jackets. It's an endless battle.
But we did do an episode segment once about Yeti coolers. I don't know if you've heard of these.
Oh, yes.
But they're bear-proof.
Impervious.
So. Yeah.
We need one of those.
Maybe you can take your book royalties from the camp out.
Right?
They're quite expensive, but... All right, Stephen, I imagine at some point when you were filming a show, a fire started. I want to hear your best stories.
Well, this wasn't a fire starting, but I talked earlier about that salt slab grilled chocolate brownie s'mores, which are truly delicious. There is one condition under which you cannot grill on a salt slab, and that is when it's very cold out. Now, when we were taping the first season of Project Fire, which just launched over Memorial Day, we had century record-breaking cold in Solvang, California, where we taped. And the night we were doing the salt slab grilled chocolate brownie s'mores, it was maybe 26 degrees out. And if you can tell, because I'm dressed like it's summer, but if you look at the crew, they're all in parkas and wool hats and everything. So we opened the grill. We're cooking the salt slab chocolate brownie s'mores. I opened to look at it, and boom! The salt slab exploded into 1 million pieces. Happily, I had turned my back for a moment, so it hit my back, not the front. And what happened was when the cold air hits a salt slab, it just shatters the way glass would shatter. So when you actually watch that episode, it is not a salt slab grilled chocolate brownie s'more. It's actually a cedar plank grilled chocolate brownie s'more, because we weren't going to do that twice with the salt slab in the cold weather. If you do it, the recipe, it's fabulous at room temperature, summertime, spring, fall temperature, but do not do it in the winter.
Who knew?
Who knew?
But I'm sure your crew has a fire extinguisher at all times, right?
Yeah, we do. What we didn't have were the shields for the exploding,
Right.
the sort of salt slab turned hand grenade. No, we do. I mean, we've been pretty lucky. I mean, also I've got a pretty seasoned crew at this point. We've done two series, some of us three series together. So, but you are working with live fire, and it's it bears paying attention. I mean, one other thing I found, and I wonder if you, Marnie, and Jen found this too, but when you're grilling in cold weather or even in winter, although I live in Miami, so it's not really that much of a challenge, but when I'm up north and grilling, because it's cold, you tend to forget that chimney starters and grills and grates are hot, right? Because you're so cold. Mm-hmm. So, I'd say you're more likely to burn yourself when it's cold out than when it's hot out.
That's
true.
Interesting. Yeah, did you have to work on your book over the winter, Marnie and Jen?
We did.
Yes, we did. We worked on our book over the winter. We started recipe testing by going out to campsites, and then we quickly realized, mostly because I was pregnant with my second son, so it was my pregnancy got in the way of our recipe testing too, that we needed a fire pit in the backyard. So because we live in the city of Portland, we researched all the rules around fire pit regulations and realized it needed to be 100 feet from any structure. Well,
oh, wow.
That is not a city situation. So we had our fire pit that was not up to the regulation standards. And we were nervous the entire time that we were recipe recipe testing in the winter that we would get busted by the neighbors. But all that really happened was our neighbor got a fire pit. Oh. They smelled all of our cooking, and I think they were inspired. But we did realize that because it was cold when we were doing a lot of the testing in the backyard, that was protecting the grass. And we recently did a video shoot for the Oregonian in which we scorched Jen's backyard pretty badly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I've done that before. Yeah.
It's a nice souvenir.
So, anything else you learned during the process of researching your book that surprised you or that might surprise our listeners, Marnie and Jen? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Surprising. Well, this is super basic, but we did not start out with good protective gear. We're using kitchen towels and oven mitts. And by the end, we now have some very powerful fire gloves and tongs, and things to keep you nice and warm and protected from the fire.
I think there's two schools of people when it comes to kitchen project people, and there are those that get all the equipment and then they learn how to do the task, and then there are those who experiment with the task and figure out what equipment really matters. And so we can jump to the chase for you and tell you if you're interested in fire cooking, you really cannot do without some great gloves, some great protective gloves, and good fire tools like to move the fire around, great tongs, and a chimney starter. Other than that, you can sort of improvise, but those elements are essential.
And protective gloves, this is not an oven mitt. This is something bigger and
like
thicker.
dragon hide.
Dragon hide.
We actually don't know what it's made of, but that seems plausible.
Dragon hide, okay. Stephen, what do you use? Do you have a special mitt or glove?
Well, I do. I actually have a line of grilling accessories.
Oh.
I have suede gloves, and I designed them to come up past the elbow because, you're reaching over fire, and you want to protect not only your hands but your arms. And I also I make a grill tong. I believe it's the longest tong on the market. It's 18 inches long. And again, the idea is to keep yourself well away from the fire.
Oh.
You're really speaking our language.
Yeah, we're loving all of this.
Yeah.
Well, where can people purchase these?
My website is barbecuebible.com. That's BARBECUEBIBLE.com. And it's they're called the Best of Barbecue line. And the tongs, there's really neat. There's one called a Lumatong that has a little flashlight built into one arm. So if it's dark out, you can kind of point it on the food and see what you're doing.
That's very clever. Well, I think it's time to move on to our dessert course, in which we each share something food or beverage related that we have been enjoying this week. I am getting ready to move this week, as Marnie knows, because Marnie bought my house. It's like such a small world. I can't believe it. But so I read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. Have you all read that? It's so helpful. Yes. So helpful to be able to get rid of things. And in the kitchen, I just came to this realization that you just have to sort of identify yourself as a certain type of cook. And I just realized I am not a baker. My ex got my KitchenAid, and I am very happy for him. And I got rid of a bunch of baking dishes. And I just realized my, Vitamix and my Cuisinart are both kind of half broken because I use them every day. So as a cook, it's very helpful to move because you just realize, okay, these are the things I use. These are the things I don't use. I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not. So I found that to be a helpful exercise.
And it has to spark joy.
It has to spark joy. Yes. So I do recommend the Marie Kondo book. I'm sure everyone's already read it. But anyway, that's my dessert. How about you, Marnie? Did you bring some dessert for us?
I did. Well, that has to remind me of Jen's story, though. Do you remember what didn't spark joy in your life, Jen, when you went and read that book?
Well, there were a lot of things. Be more specific.
I was thinking about Jen really cleared out her underwear drawer to the point where she had no underwear.
It's true. I texted her and I was like, I gotta tell you.
This book works, but maybe too well. So while you're decluttering, just make sure to keep track of the essentials.
Yeah.
But, the dessert I brought today was actually, I was thinking about what I love to listen to while I'm cooking. And for me, I love food memoir as an audiobook because I love to be listening to something while my hands are busy. So I was thinking about my favorite food memoir on audio, And 3 that I love, if you've never tried it before, are books that are narrated by the author. I love Gabrielle Hamilton's Blood, Bones, and Butter. I love Ruth Reichel's Tender at the Bone. And I love J.R. Moringer's The Tender Bar. They're all great books, really good for summer road trips, and just so much more evocative to hear, as we heard when Steve was beautifully describing that s'mores salt slab brownie. Just to hear the person who created a recipe describe the food there's nothing more fun, especially when you're cooking.
Oh, yeah. I just love hearing Ruth Reichel's voice,
I know.
no matter what she's saying.
Me too.
Oh, that's great. Jen, did you bring some dessert for us?
I did. I got kind of literal.
Oh.
So Valrhona just put out these passion fruit. It's couverture. It's passion fruit. So it's just cocoa butter, passion fruit juice, and sugar. And if you like passion fruit, these are just insane. They came out a couple days ago, and my friend David Briggs, he has a chocolate company, Chocolat de David, here in Portland. He had told me about it a few weeks ago, and then Cacao Chocolate Shop put it up on their Instagram yesterday. And so I sent my boyfriend, he works over there, and I sent him right down, and he brought home a bag, and you have to try this. It has just got such good flavor. So they're just these little medallions.
It's dairy-free, which is
Dairy-free,
nice.
yes, and actually gluten-free, too.
It's just beautifully tart and...
Wait, let's see. This will be radio theater, right?
Yeah. Sounded like a good bite.
Those are fabulous.
Excellent.
You can tell Steven's a pro.
Right?
Ooh, that hits that perfect middle point.
Right.
Because there are chocolate people and then there are fruit dessert people.
Ooh,
And
that's
usually
good.
they divide, but this brings
Best
them
of
all
both
together.
worlds.
Wow.
That is
So
delicious.
yes, I'm obsessed with those right now. We ate them all day before coming here.
And it's the simplest packaging. You might not be drawn to it in the store.
But look for
It's
it.
really beautiful.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Stephen, did you bring some dessert for us?
Well, I did, and I would actually I brought 2, if I may. I'll talk about them very quickly. So one is a book. It doesn't immediately have direct to do with barbecue, but it's called The Last Neanderthal. And it is a haunting, harrowing, beautiful tale of the last Neanderthal and the eventual encounter with a Homo sapiens. And there is a lot of grilling to the extent that bison gets grilled, squirrels get grilled, whatever animal protein that moves basically gets grilled. But it's a beautiful, beautiful family story. And the other to go with it would be not a dessert, but actually a grilled cocktail. It's in Project Fire, and it's a grilled sangria.
Wow.
And I had the idea to take oranges, lemons, and limes, cut them in half, dip them in sugar, and then char them over a screaming hot fire, so you get kind of burnt sugar, caramel flavor. That goes in a big bowl, and then you char the cinnamon sticks so the oils come out. That goes in a big bowl. Brown sugar and rum, and you let the mixture macerate. Then if you'd like a red sangria, you add Lambrusco. If you'd like a white sangria, you add either Cava or Prosecco. Super simple. Just it's a whole. What I love about grilling is it's kind of smoke is the umami, of barbecue, and it just gives you a whole new perspective on this favorite summertime drink.
Wow, that sounds good.
Yeah.
How long does it have to sit before you can drink it?
Oh, my house very, very not very long at all.
I was gonna say.
5 minutes,
5
10 minutes.
Yeah, that's the trouble with grillables. You want them right away,
Yeah,
no
it happens
matter
pretty
what.
quickly.
Oh, it sounds delicious. Thank you. Well, thank you to all of our panelists today. Stephen Raichlen, I understand that you went to Reed College right here in Portland.
I did, and I'm so excited to be back. I mean, God, Portland has become such an incredible city since the time I first came here. And tomorrow I'm actually doing a writing workshop at Reed. I'm going to participate in that. So love to be back.
And you're also the founder of the Barbecue University, is that correct?
At the Broadmoor Resort in Colorado Springs, that is true.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jen Stevenson, in addition to being the author of The Campout and The Picnic, you are also the author of the definitive Portland Dining Guide, Portland's 100 Best Places to Stuff Your Faces. I love that title.
Thank you.
And you also run the Portland Picnic Society, is that right?
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So it's just a group of women in food here in Portland, and we just started getting together casually. But we realized that because we're all involved in the food world in some way, these picnics were very next level accidentally. Like there was no bringing just, something from the deli case at New Seasons. Like it was whole roasted chickens or sides of salmon and these elaborate desserts. And so, we just started meeting in the summer months. We actually have taken a bit of a break. So this is our year to get back on track and get all the girls together. It's just a nice way to get outside, get together. It's low impact, it's easy, and everyone wants to spend more time outside, especially in Portland in the summer. So, it's really fun.
Oh, I love that idea. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And Marnie Hanel, I'm so glad to have you here. It's so crazy that you're here the week before I move out of my house and you move into my house.
It is strange, yeah.
And we went to the same grad school and we went to the same high school. So I feel like it was meant to be. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for writing the Camp Out cookbook and the Picnic cookbook. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Today's episode was recorded in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon, in the studios of OPB. You can read all about us on the OPB website. Our editor is Alex Ward. Special thanks to sound supervisor Stephen Cray. And our theme music was performed by the incomparable wine importer Kermit Lynch. Okay, people, I've got some homework for you. Go to our Facebook page and fill out our listener survey. It will help us to get more of the content you love to you, and the more of you who respond, the more it helps our show. And if you haven't already, please rate our James Beard Award-winning show on iTunes. Subscribe to The Foretop on your favorite podcast app, and tell your friends about us. You can tweet us or post on our Facebook or Instagram feeds. We will get back to you because we love to hear from you. Bye-bye now.
Nuit blanche, nuit blanche, nuit blanche.